This episode is going to be in tribute to those killed on August 26, 2021, while supporting Operation Freedom Sentinel in Kabul, Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Hoover. Staff Sergeant Hoover. Staff Sergeant Darren Hoover. Staff Sergeant Darren T. Hoover. Sergeant Johanny Rosario. Sergeant Nicole L. Gee. Corporal Hunter Lopez. Corporal Deegan W. Page. Corporal Umberto A. Sanchez. Lance Corporal David L. Espinoza. Lance Corporal Jared M. Smits. Lance Corporal Riley J. McCullum. Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola. Lance Corporal Kareem M. Nicoy. Navy Hospital Corpsman Maxton W. Soviak. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan C. Noss. It's a Tuesday edition here on Zero Blog 30, and today you already know why you're here. If you're turning into this show at this point, the last couple of weeks, you know what we're talking about. The big story in the military news world, and not just military, but the world in general, is what's going on in Afghanistan. I gotta say, since I've been doing this show, and really for as long back as I can remember, this is the most in tune people have been to the war on terror, the war in Afghanistan, that I've seen probably since it kicked off in 2002, 2003. Well, really 2001, but that main first period. Then people paid a little bit of attention when Fallujah got really bad. Then whenever Baghdad got bad again, I believe it was in 2009. And then you have Marja, and like those are the times people were paying attention. Now people are focused in again, and we want to really pay tribute to those who are fallen this week. And that's going to be the Afghans and obviously the military service members. So we're going to give you an update about what's going on and try to give you what we've learned, what we've garnered from different people that have fallen, their friends, their family that we've seen. And I got to say, I was knee deep in Zero Blog 30 Instagram and Twitter all weekend long, like looking through the DMs and looking through the stories that people were sending. It was touching beyond touching to see all the different tributes that were going on. I saw some folks that they put together a hasty, excellent military word, by the way. Like, well, I don't know if I've used that term on this show in 5 years. Hasty ruck, where they're going to do 13 miles for the 13 fallen.
Oh, I hadn't seen that. That's great.
Yeah, that one was great.
There's a lot of that happening actually at the end of the show. I'll bring up another one that I saw, but across the board, Marines and veterans and active duty saying, I'm hurting right now. What can I do? And somebody being like, well, you can meet me at this park tomorrow. I'm going on a hike. I need to go on a goddamn hike. Come on with me and hump it out. And I'm seeing that across the board on the military pages that I follow. People just getting together who don't even know each other in random towns and going for hikes together and just talking it out and remembering the fallen.
And I legitimately think it was, I hate to even use this as a caveat, but I legitimately think it was a wake-up call to a lot of veterans, like where I don't think my phone has rang or got as many text messages from people that I served with over this last weekend that I have in forever. I mean, I must have talked to 20 different dudes that and women that I served with. And some of them I hadn't heard from since like Okinawa, and they were giving me a call. And Okinawa, for you, that was a long time ago. Like that was 2006, 2007. We're talking 15-year break in between phone calls. And now people are reaching back out. And it was, of all the different things, because it is tough, man. Like, and I don't want, like, not woe is me or anything, but looking through Instagram and seeing all these stories that come up, can you help? Can you help? It really weighs in on your mental health, like big time, like, because you want to help every single person that you possibly can. But in reality, we're just a podcast. We're a social media site. We work for Barstool. We don't have a whole lot of those connections, but we tried to do the best we could. It's unbelievably difficult. The people that are actually in it, like the Chris Davises, the Thomas Schumann, all the people that are running Digital Dunkirk, man, they are going to need a time to really take a step back and decompress. And if you are in that, because I caught myself a couple of times this weekend, and my wife actually caught me doing it, where I was just so engrossed in what was going on in my phone, looking at the stories and almost like feeding this perpetual depression and guilt and shame and all these different emotions. And you just suck into this black hole of your cell phone where it's very difficult to get out. My recommendation would be don't. Like you kind of know when you're doing it and you feel guilty. Like I even told the group chat here, I feel guilty stepping away and looking at, because it's not something that people that are on the ground, it's not something that the Afghans can do, is take a step back, but you have to, right?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's so hard with the overwhelming amount of information that's coming through. And I think one thing that's so prevalent now with the social media and how omnipresent it is that it's more personal. And I think that's part of the reason, chaps, you've seen more people in tune with it the last few, with this last week and a half, 2 weeks, as opposed to the last 5 to 7 years where people had gotten somewhat numb to it, where you see something, and we're going to go through all these stories of all the fallen, when you see the personal accounts of people, and as opposed to kind of like a sterile, broken down account in a local newspaper or, on a USA Today, it hits very differently. And when you have access to so much information, as you said, just right there in your phone, to look away is a challenge in and of itself.
I think too, part of serving in the military is you want to serve, you want to do something. And right now, a lot of us have a feeling of helplessness. Like we want to help so bad. And we feel so, you're like spinning your wheels. There's nothing you can do. You want to help all those who are in right now, who are hurting because they've lost somebody. You wish you could just be by their side and tell them, you're going to be okay. We got you. Like but you can't, you want to go help the Afghans who are coming in. Like there's so much we want to do. And right now, as info, there's just only so much you can do. So give yourself some grace is what I would say.
Yeah. And I had a phone call that I got from Lugo, and he was like, "Hey there, Gunny, how you doing, man?" And I was like, it's rough right now for Sergeant. Like this is the first time really since I got out that I really wish I was back in, like, and had the opportunity to, like, for lack of a better word, like take all the little baby birds and put them under my wing and be like, we're going to be okay. We're going to do this. Like we're going to continue on and we're going to press forward. And to Kaz's point about the newspaper articles, this is something that I really want to focus on as we move through, and we'll start going through some of these stories in just a second. There might be a time that we mispronounce a name. It's not intentional. Like we're not trying to be rude about the mispronunciation. If you listen to the show, I've messed up General Miley or Millie, whatever the fuck it is, a million times. We're not the smartest folks in the world. So we're going to try to get through these names and tell you actual stories, because like Khan said, in the USA Today, the Washington Post, the New York Times, they're going to have these blurbs, and these blurbs are going to read, this person joined the Marine Corps on this date. They went to this school, then they went here, and then they did that. And it's going to make it almost seem like that's their entire life was the Marine Corps or the Army or the Navy. That's not true. I feel like that's one of the biggest disservices that we do to fallen service members, is make them out to be these last action heroes. That's not that's not what they are.
Yeah, but it's such a dichotomy because the military is so prim and proper and doing everything by the book. But at the same time, these people, they're just like any other civilian who have friends with funny stories about them. They have friends who are mourning their loss, and it's no different than if anybody lost a friend. And it's important to humanize them and not strip away that humanity from them and just speaking about them only as if their service defined them completely.
Mm-hmm. I think I drew a lot of the base of them from the Washington Post, who did a wonderful job. I was actually surprised. A lot of the media outlets did a really wonderful job of humanizing them. And that was, it's
new, it's different, right? And I think
nice to see.
I think sometimes with social media now, like you have to go further than just the official news blurb that comes out from the different branches of service. And some of them are just so touching because there was pictures that had went viral for what they were doing a few days prior, like with the young sergeant who was holding the toddler in her arms and feeding the baby. And then the next thing you know, she's on the list. And I think that makes it personal for people because they had already seen the picture like, oh, look at the great that they're doing here. And then the next is her coffin draped with the flag. It's heartbreaking. So Kate, you put together this list. Let's start going through some of the veterans that lost their life this week in Afghanistan.
Yeah, some of, excuse me, the Marines and one soldier and one corpsman. So Marine Corps Lance Corporal David Espinoza, age 20, of Rio Bravo, Texas. It's near Laredo. On Wednesday, Elizabeth Holguin received a call from her son, who was stationed in Kabul. Before hanging up, he said, "I love you." That was the last time they ever spoke. Espinoza had always dreamed of being a Marine, enlisted right out of high school. It was his calling, and he died a hero, his mom said. She remembered him as quiet, soft-spoken, who enjoyed spending time with family and friends. Now her heart has a David-sized hole that nobody can fill, she said. And I watched multiple she's just out speaking to news reporters. She just wanted to tell everyone about her son and how wonderful he was and how much she loved him. So many photos of him with his mom. They clearly had such a really, really beautiful, special bond. And in almost all those photos, when he's younger, he's wearing some form of Marine Corps hoodie or t-shirt or something. You could tell like that's what he wanted to do, was be a Marine. And that's a common theme with so many of these fallen, was that they waited their whole lives to do this job and they had so much pride. Marine Corps Sergeant Nicole Gee, am I saying that? I know you said we're going to mess that up. Age 23, Roseville, California. On August 20th, Sergeant Gee went viral when a photo of her holding an Afghan baby carefully in her arms began making the rounds. Chaps, just speaking of this, despite all the military gear, there was the rifles behind her, all the flak, everything that should have been so tough, but her face was so gentle as she looked down at the young child. Less than 1 week later, she would die in the attack. Her social media accounts showed a dedicated Marine and a loving friend. In February, her husband getting promoted to sergeant, big smiles showing through their masks. Her last post on Instagram, her helping evacuees load into an airplane at the airport. And her second to last post, the caption, "I love my job." A few days before she died, her dad, Richard Herrera, got a text from her in Afghanistan. She had just been in Kuwait, and he was unsure why she was helping women and children seeking to evacuate in Afghanistan all of a sudden, since she was a maintenance technician. He revealed that she even had a heart issue, and that was the reason. She had wanted another job, but became a maintenance tech because of a heart issue. And all of a sudden, he's hearing that she's over in Afghanistan when he thought she was somewhere else. He had never expected her to be on the front lines in Afghanistan. She said she was having the experience of her life, and I told her I was proud of her. She was a perfect child. She never got in trouble. She always went down the right road. She never got distracted, he said, struggling to catch his breath. I'm sorry, it's hard. News of her death prompted an outpouring of love and grief from friends and family. My best friend, 23 years old, gone. I find peace knowing that she left this world doing what she loved. She was a Marine's Marine. She cared about people she loved fiercely. She was a light in this dark world, wrote Mallory Harrison. And I saw on the female Marines page a lot of Marines who knew her saying she was a fucking Marine. She was the best of the best. Looking out at her car in the parking lot. Oh my God. So a lot of people
threads that I've seen about her are just incredible, and the things that she wanted to do. And one of the ones that stuck out to me most, and one of her friends actually released a text message, their last text message that they had through WhatsApp or whatever. It was like 2 or 3 days ago, or 2 or 3 days before she was killed. And her message was, I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted to deploy and do some good in the world. Now with this mission, I feel like I have, like, helping people get out of Afghanistan. It feels like I've accomplished what I wanted to, and I'm ready to go to the next phase of my life. And I just thought that that's such a way to serve, like to say, it's a lot of times we look at the military, especially the combat arms, and you're like, oh, you want to just go out there for the adventure. I don't think so. I think a lot of people legitimately want to help folks who need it. And this is exactly what this mission is here.
Yeah. And one more note, I asked Chaps before the show, I wasn't sure if I should bring this up now because this is about all the fallen. But one thing I wanted to note, a lot of the photos of her that went viral before she was killed were her holding the baby and her walking on the tarmac, walking Afghans onto an airplane. And she's looking down and smiling and making as nice as she can for these people going through such a traumatic time. And these photos were so powerful and beautiful. They were on the Marine Corps' main page, on Facebook, on Instagram, on everything. And one thing that I could not help but notice that I thought of after I found out that she was one of the ones that was killed was, as per usual, because I like to hurt myself. Whenever the Marine Corps,
you really do. You got a fucking issue with it.
Whenever the Marine Corps posts a photo of a woman in uniform, I go to the comments and I scroll through and I look, and so many of the comments, this struck out to me before the attack, before anything. I was scrolling through and I go, same old, same old. Veterans, active duty Marines, people who you click on their thing and they're a Marine, talking shit on her because she's a woman, talking about her appearance, her ass, her this, her that. And I felt rage then, and especially afterwards. And I saw this post from somebody, DM'd it to me and was like, I said, do I have permission to share this? They said yes. And it's going viral on the Female Marines page and bringing up a lot of feelings from women Marines that I'm seeing. But I just couldn't take the time to read this really quick. This was from a fellow Marine of hers. The same people placing the Black Mourning banner over their EGA are the same ones who sexualized and degraded their own just a few hours prior. The fact that people went back after finding out about her loss and deleted their comments on her IG, they were commenting on her personal Instagram as well, on her IG, and the photos posted of her duties in Kabul is disturbing and disgusting. You did not seem ashamed telling her to get back in the kitchen, or saying that you would do her if you got her alone, or sexualizing a woman boldly doing what others are too terrified to do. And she responded with such grace, with strength, by continuing to do her job, and with kindness and ferocity, with the kind of dignity you expect of a Marine. You are the same people who are posting her picture in reverence and respect, the same ones who pour a shot, the same ones who say till Valhalla, the same ones with I got your 6 tattoos, the same ones who do 22 push-up or pull-ups a day to speak out for those who need it, for those who went back to delete comments, who made comments in the first place, for those who believe your sisters are less than because you're too weak to believe we are your family. One day, I hope you find remorse in seeking likes over respect. And I hope you see this as an opportunity to change the way you think and to see this beautiful warrior for what she is, a hero and an icon of light, femininity, and love in the face of terrorism and darkness. That to me spoke volumes about the culture of the Marine Corps. She is a Marine. She's a Marine's a Marine. Not a single one of these people who are still doing this stuff and treating women in the military as if we are less than, none of you are the real deal. None of you. She is a fucking Marine and she paid the ultimate price, and you should be ashamed of yourselves. And that she didn't respond to any of it. She just kept doing her job. She's much smarter person than I am. That's for sure.
Well, we didn't see what she did on Sunday morning, Kate, if she's anything like you. We didn't see Sunday mornings.
We didn't see hungover.
And for those that don't know that joke, Kate used to, but when Katie drinks used to happen, she would get up, she would check her comments on Instagram, and that's when you know she was going to be
respond to all the
having
trolls.
A little bit of a Sunday. But you're absolutely right. And I think that this extends to other aspects of service as well. Obviously, the women constantly get shit on and for no reason. And it's like you are so fragile in your own masculinity that you feel like you have to tear somebody down in order to do that. I hate that shit. I hate it all across the services, and not just for women, but for people that aren't in combat arms. Why denigrate somebody just because of the job that they're choosing to do or the job that they were placed in? That's what we saw immediately with these posts. There was people that died that were grunts, that were infantrymen. There was people who died that weren't. Like these divisions inside the service are not good for anyone, and especially the women. Like what the women are going through is so different than what you've had to go through, and because it's not different for them, their experiences have always been the same. It's different for you because you can't put yourself in that position of having your service attacked based on your gender. It's insane that that's what they have to go through.
Constantly
Insane.
having people try to invalidate what women do,
or that you have to prove it, right? Like you have to prove that you
start
did
behind
something.
the 8-ball, and you have
and
to
what made me
it.
so angry too was that her friends who are this was written by a fellow Marine, that her friends that are mourning had to see that shit written about her. That makes me, and it was from other Marines. I just like, I just don't understand it. But again, the most important thing here is that she responded by just continuing to be a good ass Marine and doing her job right up until the very end.
Yeah, I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to spend too much time.
I'm sorry.
On
this needs to be said though. I just hope all these people who made these comments do see the error of their ways and change. And I would also charge any leader out there, if you hear just even an off-color joke, that you just don't dismiss it, address it right away, because then that's how you uproot this sort of behavior.
Yeah, when you don't call it out, you're complicit.
Right.
Yeah. But definitely an incredible Marine there. Marine Corps Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, age 31, of Utah. In his photo, I smiled looking at it. He's in his dress blues and he's beaming. He just looks like such a wonderful person. Taylor was the type of guy that would jump in front of a train for anybody, and it didn't matter who you were, said close friend Kaylee Snedeker. She shared a photo of him wearing a shirt with her face on it, and she's blowing out a birthday candle on a cake when he couldn't make it to one of her birthdays. A lot of times Marines can't be back in their hometown celebrating with friends. So he got a photo of her and celebrated by wearing her all day on his shirt. When her father passed away 7 years ago, he dropped everything. He was on the first flight here, broken shoulder, just out of surgery. He was that kind of friend. And this is one, there was this whole big local news story of all his hometown friends sharing stories like this, where he just was so selfless and just a joy to be around.
You can look at this guy's face and know exactly the type of Marine that he was.
I thought like that too.
He is the kind of guy you're walking through battalion and you're like, hey, what's going on, Staff Sergeant? Hey, what's going on, Devil Dog? You doing all right? Everybody good? How's the family? Good. See you later. And just keeps it going and keeps it moving. And because you have some that you look at and you're like, that guy's a dick. Like that person's a dick. He was the one that like the junior troops would probably go to if you have legitimate problems. And that's a great staff NCO to be.
Yeah, that's what from what I was looking at online, a lot of people were saying that. And this was his third deployment. His father said he was helping those that are less fortunate, that can't help themselves. And that's what Marines do. So definitely. And his girlfriend was sharing photos of him, just looked like a really gregarious, wonderful human being.
And I know that he's been in for a minute too, because he's like me and has some outrageously bad tattoos. So that's how you know he's the real deal.
Yeah. Army Staff Sergeant Ryan Noss, age 23, of Corryton, Tennessee. When Noss was in second grade, he scribbled in his yearbook, "I want to be a Marine," and drew himself in uniform. After high school, he enlisted in the Army.
He got smart.
Would say he got smart.
Yeah.
He had deployed to Afghanistan once before with 82nd Airborne, but when the rapid need to evacuate civilians from Kabul emerged, he deployed once again. He was married and a member of 9/8 PSYOPs group after shifting to a specialized field that often involves interviewing people. From what I saw on Facebook, he was the honor grad of his class and an amazing soldier. And PSYOPs, I saw somebody commenting on Facebook, PSYOPs are some of the first on the ground in Afghanistan, right there along with the horse soldiers and stuff like that. In the very beginning, PSYOPs was there, and they said, what an end.
And this dude must be shit hot. 23 years old, staff sergeant. You
gotta be squared away. You gotta be squared away to be that young and be a staff sergeant, but also to be PSYOPs at that age too. Because usually you take some folks who are a little more age, a little more weather under their belt to help them in what they're doing. But he definitely.
Yeah.
And I hope this isn't beyond the pale. He's also hot. Like this dude, good looking.
He's attractive. Good job.
Yeah.
Smoke, bro.
Marine Corps.
Yeah, we'll cut that.
Yeah. Marine Corps Corporal Hunter Lopez, age 22, of Indio, California. Again, another Marine just beaming in his photo in full. This is a grunt right here. Full. I hate the term battle rattle. Full battle rattle, a huge smile on his face. Lopez, a corporal in the Marine Corps, was part of a family with strong roots in law enforcement in Southern California. His mother is a deputy sheriff and his father a sheriff's captain in Riverside County. Lopez had planned to join the sheriff's deputy after his deployment. And I think I left it off here, but I believe he is the one whose family said, because it was so close to Camp Pendleton, bringing family over or bringing Marines. So you could expect a whole bunch of Marines coming over on the weekends type thing. But
not that it should matter. And actually it doesn't matter. All these folks, they were all young, but this gentleman in particular, he just looks like he's got his whole life in front of him, like a baby face. And it just kind of really stings. It looks like he, wanted to just continue to serve even after the Marines. So that really sucks.
Marine Corps Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, age 20, of Jackson, Wyoming. He got married in February on Valentine's Day before being sent overseas on his first deployment in April. The newlyweds were expecting their first child just a few weeks from now. Riley McCollum, just a baby on 9/11 himself, grew up in Jackson, Wyoming, and wanted to join the armed forces since he was as young as 2, said his sister. He signed up the day he turned 18, Royce McCollum said. That was his plan his whole life. He attended Jackson Hole High School and Summit Innovation School in Jackson before the Marines, and he was a decorated wrestler. He was, I believe, a award-winning wrestler. He was really great. McCollum met his wife after moving to San Diego for boot camp after high school. With just weeks left in his first tour of duty, his family expected that he would be home in time to meet his new son or daughter. They wanted to keep the baby's gender a surprise. That stings a little extra. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Dylan R. Marola, age 20, of Rancho Cucamonga, California. Whether he was undergoing a grueling Marines boot camp or spending time with his family, Dylan Marola did everything with his signature smile, said his older brother David. He had always been helpful, never meeting a stranger. He was on his first overseas tour as a Marine and just a few weeks shy of coming home when he was killed. At the time of the explosion, he was aiding efforts to evacuate children. He was a hero, his brother said. Back in high school, he enjoyed working on the school's theater productions. I knew Dylan for my most impactful year of high school in theater tech, said his friend Benjamin. He always showed up with a smile and brought energy to everyone that he was with. While he dreamed of becoming an engineer, he had a passion for tech and enlisted in the service because of his family's military ties. 2 great-grandfathers fought in the Korean War. When news of his death surfaced, his sense of duty and sunny disposition were highlighted across the outpouring of grief. A lot of people saying, and people look at Marines and the photos, it's them in their dress blues with a serious face. I was scrolling through the Facebook and everybody just talked about this kid was a ray of sunshine. This Marine was just, his smile could light up.
And he got roasted for it at boot camp too. Hey, they're Smiley. What?
Yeah.
Put your teeth away. You look at me with your teeth showing. I view that as an act of aggression.
Right. But just people maybe don't realize like what a sunny, amazing personality this was. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoy. I want to make sure. Nikoy. Sorry.
I'm guessing there. I mean, I don't know.
Marine Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoy, age 20, of Norco, California. Steve Nikoy first saw the Marines nearing his home on a cell phone screen linked to his doorbell camera, and he knew what their arrival meant. His son, Lance Corporal Kareem Nikoy, had been in Kabul, and he closely monitored the news and any visitors who came to his home. The Marines arrived Thursday night, choked up and emotional, he said. He wanted to absorb the news before he told anyone else in the family. I'm still in shock. I haven't been able to grasp everything that's going on. He was born the same year it started and ended his life with the end of this war. Paul Ariola, a close friend of Nikoy's, said in a brief interview on the Post that his death devastated the family, but faith has helped them persevere. He was an incredible individual with a great heart. News of his death rippled through the community in East Los Angeles, not far from Camp Pendleton. And I screwed that up. He is the one who brought Marines home. He would bring a squad's worth of Marines home with him on occasion where they would sit down for home cooked meals, his dad told the Daily Beast. So, and I mean,
that is awesome. When you have like a family that lives close, and you're one of my buddies in Quantico had that. And I think people that are listening, to civilians, and we've had a little bit more than usual lately, the ability to go to somebody's house and get a home cooked meal by a mom or a dad is a game changer. When you've been in the barracks, eating fast food, eating ramen and shit like that, you go cook something that was cooked on the stove and you're like, oh shit, this slaps different.
Yeah,
so like doing that ingratiates you to the folks that you're serving with big time.
Yeah, and you don't even need to know the person or their family at all. And it just really is still very special.
Hanging out with a real mom when you're in the Corps and far away from home.
And the moms, the Marine moms are the best. Like they loved it, give you hugs and shit. Chris Diaz's parents, like we had never met until I went to his funeral, and his mama like came up to me and was like, Matthew, I've been waiting to give you a hug for like 4 years, boy. Chris talked about you all the time. And she gave me like this huge mama bear hug, and then just sat with me, like walked around with me with her hand like around my waist, and just like, and I knew what she was doing. Like she was like, this guy has a piece of my son. I want to touch that. Yeah.
It's a lot of really, really strong families, to say the least. Marine Corps Corporal Deegan William Tyler, pardon me, I'm screwing this up so bad. Sorry, this is hard. I feel bad. Marine Corps Corporal Deegan William Tyler Page, age 23, of Omaha. A diehard Chicago Blackhawks fan and an animal lover, Page was looking forward to returning home after his time in the Marines. To his younger siblings, he was their favorite jungle gym, and to his friends, he was a genuinely happy guy you could always count on. After finishing his enlistment, Deegan planned to come home and go to a local trade school, possibly to become a lineman. He was raised in Omaha, where he was a member of the Boy Scouts. He joined the Marines right out of high school, and he will always be remembered for his tough outer shell and giant heart.
I can see that, like based on his picture, everything that was described, it fits him. You look at him, It's like, yeah, that dude's going to get out and be a lineman. That makes sense. He does, like, he has that very signature chiseled jaw too. Like where when you think of what a Marine looks like in a commercial, this is that guy, like where he has a strong jawline and all that. Next up, we have Marine Corps Humberto Sanchez, who's 22, from Logansport, Indiana. Before Sanchez joined the Marines, he was known in his hometown for making people laugh. He was the light that was on 24/7. Kennedy Rickard, who attended the school, who went to school with him. Hold on, let me fucking start that out over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you start, because you kind of like.
I hate the way they like pronouns and antecedents and shit like that in newspapers. Why speak like that? Nobody reads like that. Okay, here we go. Next up, we have Marine Corps Corporal Humberto Sanchez, who was 22 years old and from Logan's Point, Indiana. Before he joined the Marine, he was known in his hometown for making folks laugh. People that he went to high school said that he was a light that was on 24/7. In the 5th grade, Sanchez and some of his friends entered a singing competition to perform Beyonce's All the Single Ladies, complete with the single dance moves. They won, and nobody else came close, she remembered. That's the kind of person Humberto was. He was constantly joking, constantly laughing, and constantly trying to make people smile. Without question, one of his leaders at some point saw that video and absolutely roasted him about it. But if you win, you win. I mean, it's hard to roast somebody for a single ladies video when you're the winner.
Yeah. It's good.
It really is.
This to me sounds like the king of the smoke pit.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the person you want around 24.
And I want to hear, because I know for a fact, people that were in theater and people that sang, like I sang at church and things like that, you were good cadence callers. I would like to hear these dudes doing cadence.
Absolutely.
All right, who's next, Kate?
Marine Corps Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, age 20, of Wentzville, Missouri. Earlier Friday, his father, Mark Schmitz, told a St. Louis radio station that his son, who was on his first deployment, had always wanted to serve. His life meant so much more. I'm so incredibly devastated that I won't be able to see the man he was very quickly growing into and becoming. He was informed of his son's death after a middle of the night knock on the door. The Marines came by last night at 2:40 in the morning to give us the horrific news. I wish, again, not everybody, we didn't have all the information on them, but that is one aspect of it that I know every parent who has a child who's deployed just dreads, and I can't imagine what that's like. Next, we have Navy Hospital Corpsman Max Soviak, age 22, of Berlin Heights, Ohio. His last words to his mother over video chat, Kip and Rachel Soviak told the Post, were of comfort. "Don't worry, Mom, my guys got me. They won't let anything happen to me," his parents recounted. Today, she realized that they all just went together. His sister, Marilyn, posted a tribute on Instagram saying her little brother was in Afghanistan serving as a hospital corpsman. He was the lone sailor killed in the attack. My beautiful, intelligent, beat to the sound of his own drum, annoying, charming baby brother was killed yesterday, helping to save lives. My heart is in pieces, and I don't think they'll ever fit back right again. He is survived by Kip and Rachel and 12 of their other children.
My God.
12 of their other children. His parents offered comfort to the other families affected by Thursday's attack. Not that somebody had sent to me, I guess, was looking at his social media page, because a lot of people do want to humanize who are these names, who are these people, and just kind of out of this strange curiosity, you type it in, and it said he followed ZBT, Foreplay, Barstool. He was, just had a lot of, just looked like a wonderful human being from his Instagram. A lot of people saying he seemed like just a wonderful person. Marine Corps Sergeant Johanny Rosario, 25, Lawrence, Massachusetts. And this one, I'm just sharing a Twitter thread that Chaps had found and shared, because this is what you were talking about, Chaps, the personal things that people were sharing, the affirmations. I don't know if you wanted to read.
Yeah, I'll go through this one. This one came from her former OIC, which is officer in charge. So he was probably a boot second lieutenant, early first lieutenant, whenever he was and had a working relationship with her. And he says, and it's a beautiful tribute, he said, last week, 13 American service members died in action while processing Afghan men, women, and children for evacuation to the United States. Each death is tragic, worthy of equal parts sorrow, admiration, and appreciation. But one name left me heartbroken. You may have seen her listed as Sergeant Johanny Rosario or Sergeant Johanny Rosario Pichardo, but I knew her as Sergeant Rosie, and I had the honor of serving as her officer in charge for 15 months before she headed to the Middle East. Rosie was from Lawrence, Massachusetts, so we instantly bonded over shared expat masshole lineage. She was fiercely proud of her heritage as a Dominican American and wholly devoted to her mother, brothers, sisters, and niece. Her niece was the same age as my daughter, and on a weekly basis, we'd compare pictures of how fat they were, both getting. Rosie was so proud of her. Rosie was a student. She took online classes at Columbia College throughout her enlistment. She talked about how she wanted to set a good example for her siblings and niece and show that hard work would lead to success. As of last week, she had finished 83 of her 120 required units. Rosie was a teacher. When I first met her, then Corporal Rosario managed a budget of $659,000 with little to no oversight. And she taught me how the entire fiscal and supply system worked. And to an unusual place of trust and confidence of a Marine So Junior, Rosie was so good that we never doubted her. She received not one, but 2 medals during the 15 months we worked together and for her exceptional performance. She was a girlfriend, and Rosie dated a drill instructor. Although they were happy-go-lucky with each other, you would have been hard-pressed to believe that they were hard-charging Marines, and they were. It was heartwarming to watch her relationship blossom in the office, and on the rare occasion they both had breaks. When she was stationed half the world away in Bahrain to San Diego, they made it work. Rosie never went to prom, so before her boyfriend left and her best friend threw them a 3-person prom that night, and she was glowing for days afterwards. I think that's so amazing, like that they did that. It just really shows what the Marine Corps and the service is all about. She was a caretaker. Rosie had a second part-time job as a caretaker for elderly patients with dementia. What amazed me was her attitude. She loved sharing their stories and felt awe and gratitude for learning about history through their eyes. It was truly a beautiful perspective. Now, she wasn't perfect. Rosie ran slower than a tortoise through peanut butter, and she always drove the safety vehicle in PT so she could develop at her own pace. Maybe it was because Rosie couldn't run very fast and she never got away from her problems. She attacked them head on. That's probably brought her to the Abbey Gate and outside of the airport in Kabul on August 26th. The initial reports indicate she was a member of the female engagement team screening women and children for evacuation. She helped over 30,000 reach safety before she was killed by a suicide bomber. Last week, on the day Rosie headed back to Afghanistan, she emailed me the following, quote, I also got to deploy and I'm redeploying again. So I feel if I were to EAS next year, I would leave feeling accomplished and happy that I was able to experience the things I wanted. Read it again. She didn't have to deploy. She got to deploy. To Sergeant Rosie, service was a privilege. So that's who we lost. A proud Dominican American, a daughter, sister, girlfriend, and auntie, a student and a teacher, a caretaker, a United States Marine. Sergeant Rosie, I'm so proud of you for the Marine that you've become, and I'll forever be inspired by the work you did, the lives you saved, and the sacrifices you made. Thank you for everything. Semper Fidelis, Marine. powerful.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And I think that for young leaders that are listening, that is the type of information you should be able to recount about your troops.
Right.
That is the mark of a leader. When you know so much about what's going on in their personal lives and who they are. She was probably such a good Marine in part because this dude was a good leader. Like if you know all that stuff as an OIC, you're doing something right. So good on Austin too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. That's unbelievable too, that she gave her free time. And as you can both attest to, there is not much free time when you're a Marine or in the military in general. So when she takes that precious little free time that most people take to go away from base for, a night or maybe take a trip, and she was giving that time back to elderly people and taking care of them, that just unbelievably speaks volumes about her character.
My heart is just so full of admiration for the Marines that still are back out there on the line, the Marines and sailors and soldiers and people who just had to get back out and do their job, and they did it, and they're still doing it. I just, incredible.
And there's Air Force members there as well. There's some PJs that are on the ground. And I know for a fact there's been one mission that I heard that a PJ was involved in is the craziest shit I've ever heard in my life. And the fact that these folks are out there doing it the next day, there was pictures going around. I believe the Marine Corps official Instagram account actually posted it, where these troops, it was a squad carrying a casket with one of their squad mates inside, putting it on a plane, and then 8 hours later being back on a shift, standing on the wall again. Like the emotional and physical endurance that you have to have at such a young age, 20 years old, some of these 19, 20, 21, it's just unbelievable. It's not something that the average person can really understand of what they went through. And they did that all by being completely normal people too. There's going to be all kinds of tributes that come up the next couple of months, the next couple of years, really, about these 13. One of those is going to happen on September 4th. If you're in Jacksonville, North Carolina, you could do One Last Hike. You could probably Google that, or you can Facebook it, one last hike, and you could participate in that as well. There's going to be all kinds of other things, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, we want to give you an update too about what's going on in Afghanistan. This first one comes from Dan the Moth, because it's still, even though we're only one day away from the official deadline to get the fuck out of there, there's still a lot of work to be done. And I don't mean this lightly based on what we just talked about, but to me, this is kind of like that classic tale of I'm PCSing, I'm moving, I'm going somewhere. It's 8 o'clock at night and I haven't even started packing yet. Like there's all kinds of shit that has to go on. Kate, what are you seeing in the news so far?
Yeah, so this is from the New York Times, and it's kind of, you'd think, I was wondering what the final few days were going to be like. And in my head, I thought, oh, is it going to be chaos outside the gates as people are so desperate? And what we're hearing from the ground is that it's more of a resigned sense of calm is what's happening right now. In the final hours Monday of the American military presence in Afghanistan, hope dwindled among the Afghans seeking to escape, the focal point of the U.S. evacuation since the Taliban take over the city. A U.S. military raced towards a Tuesday deadline to withdraw from America's longest war. As we know, there's been sporadic violence. Earlier Monday, the U.S. military shot down rockets aimed at the airport a day after it said that one of its drones struck a vehicle full of explosives. The U.S. has warned that more attacks like the one last week at the airport that killed nearly 200 people are possible before the withdrawal is over. I know that, chaps, you've disseminated on our site many times somebody on the ground over there being like, hey, spread the word, get people out of whatever area. There's definitely been imminent threats and big time threats. ISIS claimed responsibility for that bombing, as we all know, and for Monday's rocket fire. Thousands of Afghans who had hoped for a way out of the country are facing the reality that they are unlikely to find one before the withdrawal ends. One former interpreter for U.S. Special Forces, who asked to only be identified as Mike, had approval for a special immigrant visa, but was unable to get into the airport. And that's a story we're seeing over and over. Finally, all the paperwork came in. Finally, after years of trying, they got what they needed, but now they cannot reach the airport.
And I don't know what you do as a person there, like, because you signed up with a guaranteed from the United States of America. You help us out, we're going to get you out, we're going to protect you. To me, it's just flat out fucking egregious that we're not doing everything that we possibly can. You want to talk about fucking up the last stages of a withdrawal of a war? I can't think of something more so than this. Like the way that it's going down now. I got a message this morning from somebody that was on the ground that there was a family again that had their paperwork all in order. They're on their way to the airport before the last plane took off. The Taliban pulled them out. They used the last phone. They pulled their phone out, told them to open up the phone. They contacted the last person that they had talked to. The person picked up and said hello in English, immediately executed the person. Like the fact that we're allowing this type of stuff and didn't have the foresight or the intestinal fortitude to do what was necessary, to me, is beyond the pale of what we do as military members. And that is not the responsibility of the military members. It's only responsibility of those that are in higher power, the civilian positions. I'm talking Secretary Blinken, Secretary Austin, President Biden. Those are the ones that are responsible for this. And to me, it's a stain on America that I don't know will ever wash away.
Very ultimate letdown.
And again, like the boots on the ground have done, I mean, they've done above and beyond. And two, they were put.
What else could they possibly fucking do?
In such
it's impossible.
They were put in such a horrible situation, such a no-win situation. I mean, and again, this all falls on higher leadership, for years and years and years. But
and the thing that pisses me off so much, and I'm gonna do a little bit of a rant here. The thing that pisses me off so much is because you have folks like Secretary Mattis, who was then General Mattis, that write out these doctrines that are accepted across not just the Marine Corps, but several of the branches that adopted it, where you have to have a mission and how you are going to win the mission to even send troops in. The fact that we had 20 years and we never met that first basic tenet of leadership and sending troops to combat, I just don't understand. I don't know how you could be a recruiter right now, look kids in the face, look young men and women in the face and say, this is what it's going to be, and have real trust and confidence in who's in charge. And it's not just a Biden thing. It's not just a Trump thing. This is a theme across American government for years, decades of people just playing the little fucking bullshit, watching it and being so much on social media, seeing politicians, seeing congressmen, to include my own this weekend, that were making these deaths so politicized that they were sowing more seeds of division in the United States by having all these ridiculous statements over and over and over again about who's the blood hands. The blood is on this. It's staining the very soil of the United States is what's happening now. It's not about whose hands it's on. It's about what do we do? Do we fertilize it? Are we fertilizing and are we growing? Or are we continuing to die and let liberty die around us? Because right now, you can't look at the country and say we're in a good spot. Because we're not. We see it in our Instagram posts over and over and over again, where even people that are serving are constantly and consistently attacking one another based on political divisions and who's in charge. It's fucking bullshit, and it's got to stop. Stop.
The first thing I saw, a lot of politicians, before they even said, rest in peace to these, was immediate politicization of their deaths. And some almost
my dumbass congressman saying it's going to cause fucking suicide bombers on the Mexican border. What the fuck are you talking about?
How do you make that leap? That's absolutely ridiculous.
I guess what I just don't understand is the lack of empathy and how these people at a higher level can't pause for a second and say, hey, maybe I should just shut the fuck up for a day or two, Sure.
They've been conditioned. They've been conditioned to do something completely the opposite. They've been conditioned to run right to their social media, run right to some news outlet, and just start spouting off opinions, as opposed to what you just said, which would be the better course of action in just about everybody's life right now.
But it is disappointing to see, and
I am guilty of that as well. Like going to social media and venting right away. I had a response that probably wasn't an appropriate response when it first happened. I got pictures of what was going on in the initial drone strike where it killed the ISIS-K planner who planned these attacks. I was fucking stoked that dude was dead. We had battle damage assessment. We knew that there was no civilians that were killed in that. So I went to Twitter. I was fucking happy, celebrating it. The very next day takes all of that away. When you have a good strike, and nobody's going to be fucking sad that the ISIS-K dude that planned the deaths of 13 Americans is going, you're not going to be sad about that one. The next day in our drone program, when you have reports coming out that children are dying at our hands because we're relying on shitty intelligence again. To me, man, like the military members and the veterans who have been on the ground and those family members that are attached to it are in such an unbelievably difficult place, because you have this sense of, in American politics and really global politics, where nuance isn't allowed. There isn't. I think it's perfectly fine to celebrate the death of anybody in ISIS. They die, they get liquefied. I don't give a fuck. I will never shed a tear. In fact, I'll go into my refrigerator, pull out a beer and crack it and enjoy that motherfucker. But the moment that it becomes something different and children, women, innocent civilians are involved, to me, we have got to look for accountability there, because that doesn't happen. Imagine, man, like really imagine if the roles were reversed and somehow we had occupiers here and 13 children were killed. What would we be calling for?
Yeah.
And those kids don't have their lives. They'll never have their lives. And there's no one that's going to be held to account. Not the AO, not the CG, not the SecDef, not the president. No one's going to be held to account for killing fucking kids.
Honest question, because I didn't see it. Did anybody step up and take any sort of accountability?
Oh, of course
for that?
not. That's not what they do. Like, that's not what we're not in the business of taking responsibility. We'll say the biggest, like, we got a bad lead. We didn't know there were secondary explosions inside the vehicle. If you authorize the drone strike, you gotta fucking know. You gotta know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. It's not acceptable to kill innocent civilians, and especially women, children.
And my mom just texted me, "What's your favorite thing that I ever got you for Easter?" I mean, what are we doing here, Linda?
Classic Linda.
Classic.
Linda, get some perspective.
Maybe
Jesus.
she knew. Maybe she could feel I was upset.
Yeah,
I think
tell.
like even where I feel us doing it too, and like you acknowledge that we're doing it, but like the most important thing right now is just stepping back and acknowledging these 13 lives, and just everybody just shut the fuck up for a minute and just honor them and read their stories, look at their photos, hear what their family members, how they're remembering them, how they're honoring them, find ways to do good in your own local community in their honor, and to be a good American in their honor. And maybe that doesn't involve, I mean, we're all guilty of it, but being shitty online. I think that's all I'm going to say. I think I'm done. I think there's too much talking. There's too much commenting, too much talking, and it just doesn't do their memory any good.
The political jousting just has to stop. And all these people who feel it necessary that they voted for Biden, they're rushing to defend him. It's okay to either one, not say anything, or B, you don't necessarily need to defend someone simply because
it's not your fucking quarterback, man. Like, these politicians aren't your quarterback. They're supposed to be doing a job. Do the job better.
Exactly.
Like, that's all we can really, but all you really want. I mean, I don't want to keep drawing on, because this is a topic that I could just go round and round in circles and just be upset and pissed off, because one, I want the memory of those that are lost to mean something. Like, and you have to try to look at what can we gain from this? Like, what? And right now the answer is, I'm not sure. Hopefully something good and positive will come out of this. Well, we already know that something good is positive. You read it earlier, Kate. 30,000 people were evacuated because of the actions of these folks and what they did. That's a real difference. That's the real difference that they're making.
I saw testimony of sorts from people over here who were part of that digital Dunkirk, specifically saying that Marine right there was one of the ones who helped us specifically get people through. Each and every one of them is, I feel like the term gets thrown around a lot. Each and every one of these people is a hero, of these military members, an absolute hero who truly did do good, who truly really did change. There are 30,000 lives changed forever because of their efforts. And that's no small thing. That's everything.
Yep.
Amazing.
No doubt about it. It's a legacy that we didn't want them to have so soon, but it's one that they have, and there's no doubt about that. Let's move on to save rounds and alibis. Cons, we'll start with you.
I have a bunch of, honestly, they're all obsolete, and they don't matter based on the conversation we just had. I could talk about them another time. Bears no weight on this conversation.
Kate?
Same. I don't really have anything more to say. Just thinking of the families, and two, of all Gold Star families right now. And I feel like we talk about the moms and the dads, but reading here how many had little brothers and sisters, and how many had just siblings and cousins, just everyone affected by this across the board. I just sending my love and thinking of them all.
Hey, to that point, I think it's so important. Obviously, the 13 that we mentioned on today's show, we appreciate their sacrifice, and that is amazing. But that should not take, that doesn't take away anything from the sacrifice that all of the thousands of people that have given their lives and made that sacrifice the last 20 years. I know there's a lot of news stories and a lot of highlights right now about these 13, but every single one of our service members who gave their lives in the last 20 years are equally as important. And I don't want you to feel any Gold Star families out there as though they've been forgotten about, because they'll never be forgotten about as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of beautiful tributes that are going on from Gold Star families, because that community itself is very strong with each other too, where it broke my heart when I saw one of the wives of one of the Marines that I trained, when she was commenting on our stuff and says that everything feels fresh again. She knew I was going to see that. I don't think anybody else in the comment section pieced it together, and it broke my heart. Like every time that those stories come across, because there's only so many ways a casket can be taken off of a plane at Dover Air Force Base. And every time that we see those, it puts a little bit of a pit in your stomach, and you don't know what to do. And I feel like that's where we are as a military community. So many of us right now are struggling, where you're going through it with your mental health. Is everything that I went through, was it worth it? Afghanistan's going to fall. What do we do? The answer for me is we don't know, but we have to do it together. And you're not going to be able to do it alone. You're going to have to lean on those people that have those, that can commiserate with you, that can understand. Find somebody to talk to and speak out with, and don't let those feelings just fester, because those feelings, when they fester, all that's going to come is nothing but rotten shit. We've got to prune some of these vicious wounds that our tree trunks are having, essentially, in order to bloom fresh. We all want to do that. This is another hard episode for us to record, because we're a comedy podcast. At the heart of what this show is, we are for the military veterans, for the active duty service members, and for the families. And we're a comedy show. We want to entertain. We don't want to do stories like this. It's heartbreaking, obviously. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have more and more stories that come in and show the human side of these 13 who lost their lives. I promise you, we will bring those to you as well, because that's what needed to be seen. Although you are a member of the armed forces and you wear the uniform, you can be a person too. And in that being a person, you have feelings, and it's okay to feel those feelings, to be sad, to be depressed, to be fucking angry as shit, and stare your government in the face and said, I'm serving. What the fuck are you doing? Let's get it right. Sound the retreat.